Know it was coming because they had no radio, and no one told them the wind is going to blow. It just started blowing and blew harder and harder and harder until the house was shaking. And Pop took me under his arm, and Mom had Sis, and they crawled across the road to another house that was standing. They built houses with nails, and they had not discovered the plumbing strap, which is a 1/2 inch wide strip of flexible metal with holes in it. Wrap it around the roof timbers and drive nails all over it, and that would hold it steady. Now they have brackets, just a piece of steel, and shoot lots of screws, and it can't move at all, nor can the roof be pulled off. But then they didn't know about how to build.
So how devastating was the impact of that hurricane to the community?
Very bad. It's the worst we've had, and it left a lot of water around, 6 inches of water. Pines and palmettos for as far as they could see. Now he drugged that back and built it better, and since they didn't have braces, he nailed boards in 3 or 4 ways to hold it together. And that house lasted until about 3 years ago. They burned it down to build another one.
1926 hurricane, I think all of us who grew up down here were raised on stories of the hurricane because our parents went through it. I was too little to remember it since I was in a crib, but it was bad. My grandparents, as I said, their home was next door, and they ended up in our house because a big tree went down through the roof into their dining room, and they managed to get out and get over there. We had, my folks' house at that time was a little 1-bedroom, 1-bath house. They hadn't even added onto it at that time. And there were, I think they told me, like 38 people in there by the time the hurricane was over. They would look out the front door, and my mother said it was so frightening. You look and see people crawling across the railroad track. They could not stand up, but their houses had either been very severely damaged or were gone, and they were looking for someplace. And so they would come. You know, you open the door and get them, come in the other way from the way the wind was blowing, and get them in there. The eye of the hurricane was quite large, and people didn't know about the eye. And the ones that I know that I knew that were hurt went outside. They thought the hurricane was over, and they went outside to try to see what kind of damage. And it was worse when it came back. It was worse than it had been, and they were the girl that I said I knew, her father was killed by a flying limb before he could get in the house, and one of our residents, I know, man that lived here, he was crippled pretty much for life from something that blew and hit him before he could get in. We've had some pretty good sized ones. We had one that I recall, Cleo. And it was in the 60s. I don't remember what year, but Cleo really hit Oakland Park very hard. We had, I think we had 30-something trees down in our yard alone. You couldn't hire anybody to help you clean up afterwards because there was so much debris everywhere. There were big coconut palms that had been there before the 1926 hurricane that were gone. And there was lots and lots and lots of debris around. People were prepared for it. They knew it was coming. There was a hurricane in 1947, which had a lot of wind. It was pretty good size. But Afterwards, it was followed by another one that I have always been told what happened. They knew it was coming and they decided to seed it to try to make it go away. And instead of doing that, it dropped all of the rain on us, and we had one of the worst floods I guess that South Florida has ever had. And there are pictures of people in rowboats going up and down Dixie Highway.
Those were hurricanes with lots of water. It was deep, you know. And after that hurricane was over, well, what did I do? I had to go to Wilton Manors to wash. I mean, I didn't have a washer or dryer, and well, nobody had dryers in those days. I had to go to Wilton Manors. There was a wash house there, so you went there to wash. Then you brought your clothes home and hung them out. But you couldn't hang them out. It was flooded. Finally, I had to wash. So my husband had Navy rafts that he had brought home from service. We blew those up, and I floated my wash baskets, my clothes baskets on that, so I could hang the clothes on the line. And while I was hanging clothes, here's this little white ibis that followed me along in the water. And the water was perfectly clear and up to your knees. I mean, you couldn't tell it was water. It was so clear.